The film starts with a monologue from Lydia Geetz that kickstarts her show. The theme of her show revolves around paranormal conversation and spooky stories and experiences from real-life people. During the taping of one such episode, she starts to feel a little dizzy. We get to see flashes of Beetlejuice from the audience, the same figure that haunted her life several years ago. Eventually, she has to put a stop to the taping and goes back to her makeup room. Her husband Rory arrives to confirm if everything is okay. She assures Rory and reveals that it's nothing but her overworked self. Rory takes away Lydia's pills and tells her everything is okay. However, when Lydia starts to panic, he gives the pills back to her. Moreover, Lydia gets a phone call from her mother and meets with her on an urgent basis. She gets to know about the demise of her father. The scene shifts to an animated montage, where we get to know the nitty and gritty details of the tragedy. At first, Lydia's mother states that his father was in a plane crash, and even though he survived the crash, he was devoured by a shark. Lydia still tries to figure out how she is going to break the news to Astrid, her daughter. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the world of the dead, where we get to see an old janitor making a mistake and getting electrocuted. This leads to an introduction scene for Dolores. It involves a fully dismantled avatar of Dolores stitching herself back to a human-like form. The scene involves various pieces of her body coming together to make her as a whole. At last, she confronts the old janitor with the whereabouts of Beetlejuice, when the old man fails to provide her with any details. She ends up sucking his soul and eliminating him again. The old janitor shrinks into a lifeless form, thereby giving us a hint of Dolores's power. Lydia and the gang get in their car to reach Astrid's school after she doesn't pick up her call. It is revealed that Astrid is visibly angry at Lydia and doesn't want to communicate with her. Even though Lydia's mom tries to get some empathy into Astrid, she states that she would rather be with the dead than Lydia. The scene shifts to Beetlejuice and his crew. Wolf Jackson, aka the Office of the Underworld, arrives to give him a fair warning. He states that a woman is after him and wants to exact revenge. It is revealed to be the soul-sucker Dolores. As expected, Beetlejuice doesn't pay much heed to the warning. The scene shifts to the funeral scene. We get to see Astrid and Lydia engage in a one-to-one conversation. Astrid expresses her disdain for life and the fact that she knows so little about her father. Lydia skips the topic and suggests that Astrid see a therapist. Moreover, she provides very few details about the demise of Astrid's father and offers little chance for any reconciliation between her and Astrid. The scene shifts back to the world of the dead. Charles the Headless Ghost arrives at a shop. Right after he leaves, we get to see another intervention by Dolores. This time, she sucks another soul and gets on with her mission to track Beetlejuice. On the other hand, Beetlejuice runs into Wolf Jackson again. This time, he reiterates his warning and gets a complete, detailed introduction about Dolores and his past. Beetlejuice explains that he was once married to Dolores. The scene shifts to a flashback, indicating how the duo came together. Moreover, it is also revealed that Dolores was part of a cult, and even though Beetlejuice is quite weird himself, he parted ways with Dolores, thereby making her angry and revengeful. The scene goes back to the funeral scene, where Astrid has a harsh conversation with Rory. It is clear that she is not happy with Lydia and Rory together and holds no bar when expressing her distrust. Right after this, Rory decides to propose to Lydia in front of everyone. At first, she is clearly hesitant and has no idea what to say. Moreover, it's only after Rory gets Lydia emotional that she embraces Rory. This is taken as a yes from his side and everyone starts to clap. Rory also reveals that they will get married on Halloween. Meanwhile, Astrid leaves the scene in frustration. She starts to cycle her way and ends up creating chaos on the road. Eventually, she crashes into a fence and lands directly in a neighbor's garden. The person who helps her is a young lad named Jeremy, who inquires about the reason for Astrid's visit. She talks about the funeral and also starts to discuss his father, and it reveals the sour relationship between her and her mother. The scene shifts back to Wolf Jackson, who investigates the victims of Dolores. He comes across the disfigured janitor and fears that Dolores is already on her way to Beetlejuice. He decides to get back to him before Dolores does. Meanwhile, Beetlejuice remains clueless about the entire development. He spots the news of Charles's death and decides to reconnect with the living world and Lydia. Back at Wintertown, Astrid goes over the attic and finds a miniature model of Wintertown. She spots an advertisement for Beetlejuice and is interrupted by Lydia. Lydia arrives and looks over some old photos with Astrid. This is when she takes a first look at Beetlejuice's poster. She is startled by the mere mention of it and warns Astrid to stay away from it. She also states that by repeating Beetlejuice's name 3 times, trouble will appear. Astrid leaves and Lydia goes back to her mother to discuss things. This is where we get to see the connection between her and Beetlejuice. and how it did not end happily last time around and caused a lot of ruckus for everyone. Moreover, she also states that she is still seeing Beetlejuice. Her hallucinations still don't make any sense to her. Right after this, Astrid spends some time with Jeremy. Both of them bond over their father figures and traumatic lives. This is when she breaks the news of her mother's wedding to Jeremy. Astrid has no intention to attend the wedding, and Jeremy consoles her. Moreover, Rory prepares for a lavish wedding with Lydia. However, Lydia is still not prepared to have a giant wedding. In fact, she wants to keep it small and concise. If anything, she doesn't even feel interested in the wedding at all. This is when Lydia starts to see visions of Beetlejuice everywhere. She even gets frustrated and vents out in the attic. A confused Rory comes after her and inquires the reason behind this mess. She reveals everything about Beetlejuice and her past. She states that Beetlejuice was once a clever demon that entered her life and played tricks on her family. He attempted to marry her and get back to the living world. However, Lydia escaped the situation before it turned out that way. She also reveals that Beetlejuice arrives once you take his name 3 times. Rory considers all this information about Beetlejuice lightly. He believes that Lydia's overthinking is the reason for this. Moreover, he also goes ahead and repeats Beetlejuice's name 3 times. It doesn't take long for them to get transported to a different space. They get transported to Beetlejuice's office where the clever demon plays tricks on them. He ends up doing several disturbing activities, like shutting up Lydia's mouth, playing on their worst nightmares and introducing them to his childlike version. That is even more out of hand. Rory faints after seeing a series of unexpected things. Moreover, Lydia repeats the word home 3 times and gets back to her attic. This is when she watches a miniature version of Beetlejuice singing in the model of Wintertown. As Rory wakes up, he dismisses all this as a hallucination. However, Lydia still remains in a state of panic and decides to get rid of the model and leave the town. When she confronts Astrid and her mother about the plan, she has a change of plans. Astrid states that she wants to stay as she has met Jeremy and wants to spend time with him. The next day, Lydia drops Astrid back to Jeremy's house. When the two embrace each other, Astrid and Jeremy start to fly. This is when Astrid gets nervous and asks Jeremy to reveal who he truly is. Jeremy states that he is a ghost. Moreover, he fell from the treehouse and ended up in this state. Jeremy further reveals that he really likes Astrid and that she is the first person who could see him. Astrid doesn't want to be together with Jeremy, as he is a ghost. Jeremy states that there is a way that they can be together and that she needs to hide this new information about him from her mother. He also states that in exchange she could speak with her father for the last time and tell him goodbye. Meanwhile, back at home, Lydia informs her friend that she has dropped Astrid at Jeremy's house. Her friend reveals the truth about the place. She states that Jeremy had eliminated his parents, and when the cops came after him, he ran through the treehouse and fell, after knowing the truth about the place. Lydia goes to rescue Astrid as soon as possible. Moreover, Astrid helps Jeremy by reading a spell from the book, as Jeremy opens the door to the world of the dead. Lydia arrives a little late to the scene while Astrid and Jeremy close the door. Meanwhile, Lydia's mother sacrifices herself to reunite with Charles. The scene shifts to Lydia running back to her attic to meet with Beetlejuice. She believes that he is the only person who can solve her problem. As she calls him, Beetlejuice appears. However, he presents a condition to Lydia that will save him from the wrath of Dolores. Since Lydia has no choice but to agree, she signs the contract with Beetlejuice. She immediately gets taken into the other world of death by Beetlejuice. As she enters the world, every creature is surprised. Moreover, the duo leaves the door open and makes way for the creatures to enter the living world. This makes for a surprise of a lifetime for Rory and others back at the house. They are left running for their lives after seeing these creatures from the other world. Meanwhile, Wolf Jackson immediately senses a danger. He gets to know about someone entering the world of the dead from the world of living. This leaves him in total chaos as he decides to hunt them down. Meanwhile, Astrid gets to know the truth of the situation. Jeremy tells her that he has exchanged his life with her and that he will return to the living world. This leaves Astrid in dismay, as she is taken away by the dead members to complete the process. As she is taken away, she spots her father, Richard. Moreover, he also takes notice of Astrid as she is taken to a train. This is when Lydia enters the scene and gets a hold of Astrid before she is transported on a train. As Lydia and Astrid escape, they land in a desert-like location. This is where they meet with a large snake coming to devour them. Right in time, Richard arrives and rescues them both. The family shares a special moment of reuniting and explains that he is always watching them over. Soon, the scene shifts back to Wolf Jackson. He is given the update that the door between the two worlds is closed. Moreover, he also starts to interrogate Beetlejuice's minion, named Bob. Meanwhile, Lydia's mother also meets up with Beetlejuice and asks for his help. This is when the trio of Richard, Lydia, and Astrid arrive to save Astrid's soul. However, it is revealed that they are too late. This is when Beetlejuice takes over the scene. He sends Jeremy directly into hell and saves Astrid's soul, thereby making sure that his contract still stands. Right after this, the trio bids farewell and returns to the world of living. Lydia and Astrid reach the wedding in time. Meanwhile, Lydia's mother also arrives along with Beetlejuice. It is revealed that he also saved her, and he has come back to make sure Lydia honors the contract. The scene then goes completely berserk when Beetlejuice starts to repeat his cartoonish activities. At first, he injects Rory with a truth serum, and that forces Rory to reveal that he is only marrying Lydia because of her money. Moreover, his fiancée is not dead, but alive. After this, Lydia uses a punching glove from Beetlejuice to hit and send Rory flying. This is when all the guests disappear, and Beetlejuice manipulates the priest to officiate the wedding. He starts to sing and perform his wedding ceremony while floating in the air with Lydia. However, his wedding is interrupted by Wolf Jackson, who comes with his otherworld soldier to arrest Beetlejuice. At first, Beetlejuice appears to have surrendered to Wolf Jackson, but it doesn't take him long to fight back. He uses his spell to free everyone in the room, including Jackson. He is able to freeze them completely and render them incomplete of any action. However, for the final twist, Dolores crashes the party. She enters in her own haunting fashion and tells Beetlejuice to come with him. Meanwhile, Beetlejuice tries to prevent himself from being taken away by Dolores. This is when the duo of Astrid and Delia look over for spells in their spellbook. They use a spell to bring back the sand snake-like monster that they encountered in the desert. The monster arrives and devours Dolores and Rory and sends them to the other world. This is when Beetlejuice considers himself free and starts to put the contract up again. However, this time around, Astrid points out a flaw in his contract, as it already violates a certain rule. This leaves him confused. Astrid helps Lydia get out of the contract. Right after this, Lydia repeats Beetlejuice's name and sends him floating in the air. At last, Beetlejuice gets filled with air and then bursts open, thereby vanishing from existence. Everything goes back to normal as Lydia and Astrid return to normal. This is when Wolf Jackson gets unfrozen and reveals that he has to take back Delia. However, none of them are sad as she gets to reunite with Charles. She goes back to the other world and finally gets to be with Charles. In the last few frames, we see a monologue from Lydia, who opts for her decision to spend the rest of her life with her loved ones instead of the dead world. Moreover, we find Astrid getting married and giving birth to a miniature version of Beetlejuice. As a final twist, it is revealed to be Lydia's dream. As Lydia turns, Beetlejuice appears and disappears, thereby leaving us at a cliffhanger, whether he is back or not. The film ends here. I hope you liked this movie recap. Please comment on what you liked about this movie and what scene you liked. And don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.